Hello YouTube, how you all doing? Welcome to another discussion by the Common Sense Guy, and today I'm with a gentleman called Dix, or how we're going to refer to him as Dix. Just before we continue though, I am going to do a quick bit of housekeeping. So that I haven't actually been doing videos for anybody at this moment in time, or just doing videos in general. I'm going to be having my operation on Tuesday the 27th. So unfortunately, I've been on a liquid diet for the last 3 weeks, and to be honest with you, I haven't been able to concentrate very well. I haven't been able to focus on anything too well. But coming back to tonight, I was having a discussion with a couple of people in a particular group I hang out in on Twitter, and did this argument come up, and it was an argument that intrigued me simply because I wanted to understand the reasoning behind it. So I'll leave it to you, Dix, and I'll let you carry on. And how are you all doing?
Hello,
Yep.
I'm known as Dix, and I guess we should give a little exposition on how we arrived at this discussion. I think we were in a Twitter chat, and someone was talking about abortion and who should get the say in abortion. I think someone specifically mentioned that uh, because men have to pay for the men have to pay like for the upkeep of the kids.
Yeah, child maintenance.
Yeah, child maintenance. They have to. Um, they should get a say as well. Now, this discussion then turned to a more general discussion about the family and how uh, how society should be organized. So, uh, my eventual proposition was, and I know it's going to be very controversial. I've not heard many people that support this. Is that eventually in the future, so not right now, the concept of the family should not exist in the society. It will be obsolete.
And what I
That's
wanted to go through today is obviously I'm against this wholeheartedly, but what I wanted to go through today is how did you get through to that conception or inception of the idea for even that to happen, and how did you arrive with a conclusion of parents in general shouldn't be looking after their children, so to speak? It should be in an aspect of a governmental aspect.
okay. So I think the idea came from a simple. I see this as pretty much a fact, which is that parents don't own their children, right? So children are human beings on their own, even if they don't, for example, have the right to vote and stuff like that. But that's mostly because they're not able to, not because they're inherently less worthy of human beings. And because of this, I like started realizing that placing them. Okay, there's this part, and there's also a second part, which is that because I'm kind of an idealist kind of guy, I didn't really see how having a child meant you have to take care of that child. So, like, yeah, sure, that child is connected to you by blood, I guess, but I didn't see why that has to turn into into an obligation for you to take care of that person.
If I may quickly just jump in for 2 seconds.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, if you don't mind, I would just
Oh,
quickly
of
like to
course.
jump in for 2 seconds. I'd just quickly like to put a parentheses out there as saying, well, if you think that, which is fine, a lot of people don't have to have the idea of looking after the child that they have. They can give the child up for adoption, but the adoption in itself is still going to be other people that turn into parents. It wouldn't be a governmental aspect of looking after the child. I mean, we can go into different aspects of the parents actually deciding that they were going to have children or unfortunate events that led to having a child, which means that personal responsibility is a case of you need to look after the mistakes and the choices that you've made. We can skip past that point and go, well, this is a case of you've got a child or you've made the child, you knew that the child was coming for 9 months or for however long, and it's a case of you could have had an abortion to start off with. Now, I'm against the idea of like late term abortions, but abortions in themselves are sometimes a good idea. They're neither good or bad in general. But to say that the government itself should take hold of the child straight away, for your prophecies in general, I can't see how that would be the leading choice, as in what you're advocating as that should be the norm rather than a parental decision to have that.
Well, I want to clarify a point that I made earlier, which is that I do not believe that parents have any biological parents have any rights to their children. So the government's not really taking them away. Like the children are not the property of the parents. That's my starting point. I think
Okay,
that's completely different.
okay, that's fine. I mean, I obviously would never say that the child is the property of the parent. Nobody would ever
Yeah.
say that.
Okay. I didn't mean to imply that you said that.
No. I understand your preference. I understand. Sorry, your preferences. I understand what you're getting at. It's just a case of nobody would ever start. Nobody would ever start with the argument that kids are the property of the parents. No, they're the responsibility. Responsibility doesn't mean property. Responsibility means that you look after, you take charge. It's the same as you saying, well, the government has a responsibility to look after the children for whatever reason that you'll give at a later date. The responsibility doesn't make it a property right or a right. It's a case of you bore these children, you have the responsibility to look after these children. But if you decide you don't want that responsibility, the state will put them up for adoption or into care system. And that in itself is a bad idea in general. But even with the care system, it's designed for them to find a family. It's never designed for the government to take hold of the child and be the child's caregiver.
No. I agree that like the current system is not designed for this. Like I know that like the current system is not what I envision. I mean, it's not because it's not. You're not having the only thing that you're creating is instead of creating a healthy environment for children to grow up, you just create a division between people that have parents and people that don't have parents, and it's a division to the point because the government, I think this is true around the world, does not take care properly of the children. So
So, so what would make you then advocate for instead of parents looking after their own responsibility and their children?
see,
Why would you advocate for the government to look after?
this is my problem. I don't think it's their parents' responsibility, and I've heard what you said about the fact that
So whose responsibility is it after they're the ones that are the ones creating it?
they're sure they created it, but that they created them, but that doesn't mean that they should be responsible for it. And this
But
also
why should the government then? If the two human beings,
the government is responsible. Okay, I should probably say what I think the government should do in a society, which is to guarantee human rights. That is, it should always do that for everyone, and it should do nothing else. And that includes taking care of the children, because
said that the government generally does not have the best interest for people in general. So why would you
I
advocate?
I don't know about that. I mean I understand where you're coming from. Like go, current governments they're pretty shit, but that's not quite true. I mean the government is. It sounds. First of all, we could say the same for the parents, but that's a different thing. Um,
Generally,
the government does a really good job in terms of basic stuff. Like
Like what?
it does a better job than if it weren't a government. Like, you wouldn't have any human rights if there wasn't a government.
But I'm not asking about human rights. I'm asking what the government does that is good to looking after its people.
Healthcare. I don't know. I'm just.
But the government doesn't do healthcare. The government stipulates healthcare. It's the people that run the healthcare that do healthcare. It's the doctors and the nurses and so on and so forth. The government just puts into place of building the hospitals, not how it's run.
Well, yeah, of course, the government is not like a bunch of people. The government is a structure. It doesn't physically affect. It's a construct. It doesn't physically affect the real world. I'm talking about like the institution itself, because those doctors, yeah, they can very well exist, but if there is no actual institution to provide, like, I don't know, maybe to pick something that's maybe even less controversial, because I know there's some people that think healthcare shouldn't be provided by the government. I don't know.
Well, I'm one of the people that actually do think that healthcare should be included by the government. I believe in a mixed economy. So, but even if you were to have the prophecies of saying that the government itself provides the healthcare, that still doesn't provide any good aspect of helping everybody, as in helping a society, because there would be different levels of care from different levels of people, because the government itself is a collection of people, not a sole entity in itself. So the people that are actually looking after whatever and whoever are still just people in general.
Yes, I agree, but I don't see where you're going with this.
Who would be better to look after the children themselves? The people that already have an emotional connection, as in a DNA or genetic connection to them, or people that have no idea how the children are or was or how they come to be or nothing about the children's story whatsoever.
Yeah, but my counterpoint to that is that the people that would take care of the children would be actual people that are trained to do that. So you'd have specialists in this field. I don't know.
But the specialist will never be able to give the love that a parent would, or a general parent would. Yeah, there are instances when
I disagree here. I think you're because in our society and in our current system, because like the current society, like the family has a very important role in the current society, right? And because of this,
I would argue it doesn't.
Sorry?
I would argue that the family cohesive unit as a generalization has been completely and utterly disintegrated, where you don't need to have a two-parent household anymore, and it's considered in some cases, especially in UK, to be trendy to be a single parent, regardless of sex.
Family doesn't. We're talking about parents here. Sure, if you have one parent or two parents or three parents, I don't care. But if you have zero parents, that is much worse for you. Right, so there is still the concept of family, and it's very well entrenched. And I argue that you're basically, and I argue that because of this, the taking care of orphans and people that don't have a family has been I don't know the word in English for this, but has been basically neglected. And what I'm arguing is that is that you, for example, see like the system in the state that it is, and you assume that it will always be this way.
Yes, because humanity doesn't change. Humanity will have good points and have bad points. But the thing is, humanity is not going to change in any aspect. But you're trying to say that government in itself. Okay. Sorry?
I argue differently, but sorry, go on.
No, what I was going to say was that no, there's always going to be bad humans and there's always going to be good humans. There's always going to be humans that want to go off and kill people. There's always going to be humans that want to go off and rape people. There's always going to be humans that are going to be against that. Always, regardless. But the thing is that if you take away the idea of parenthood, the idea of intrinsically being that you have the best interest for your child away from the parents, who's going to give the best interest to those children? Because it's fine saying, oh, we'll have specially trained people that'll be able to do this. But you have to remember that the people themselves are only human and they're fallible. Same as the government is run by humans and it's fallible.
Same as the parents are fallible.
Yes, but generally the parents, in general, are the best people to look after the children. Generally, yes, there are outliers, but generally, the parents are the best people to look after their own children because they have an emotional connection with them.
Generally, in the society, okay, my point would be generally in the society that we live in, which is very family centric, in which like no attention has been brought to like I'm saying parents are the best alternative in our current society, but they're not gonna be the best alternative forever. And I am saying humanity will change because we're like approaching a point where the I don't know if it's not right to call it the natural law, but where for example, how animals work, right? Because the concept of family is nothing new. Like animals have families to a certain extent.
Every animal has a family of some extent, yes.
Oh.
They always have a mother and a child, mother and a father and a child of some description.
No, yes. There are animals that just lay their eggs and just leave, but yeah.
But you need a mother and a father to begin with. Some animals just have. Yeah, you do.
We're talking family isn't like an actual connection, not just. Yeah, obviously you have a mother and a father. Well, mother and a father. Although there are some organisms that like don't.
Yeah, but what you're advocating for is the changing in the idea of K types and A types, as in some different species will have.
Sorry, the what?
K types and A types. It's a way of saying that if you have a lot of children or eggs that spawn off, and it's basically a way of determining how spouses, how children and the next generation are distributed. As in, you'll have some that completely just give thousands upon eggs and let them go and not worry about anything. And you have what we are, which is that we will have 1 or 2 babies at a time and completely focus all of our attention onto them. It's a way of being able to make sure that we genetically improve our next generation.
I agree that it's worked much better than like before. I'm not arguing for a return to just whatever, have as many kids and just leave them there, right? I'm arguing that rather than have every person take care of their own offspring, society together basically, because society together delegates a bunch of people that take care of their offspring. And to this, I also want to bring, you said that parents completely focus on their children. That's not true. That's not true even if in like animal societies, I don't know if that's a way to put it.
It will do. We understand what you mean.
Yeah. Parents like take, I don't know, spend how much time with their children. I assume it goes down as the children
But let's take mammals, as that's what we are. We're a mammal species.
Sure, but
most mammals themselves, the reason why I'm using mammals is because that's what we are. The reason why I'm using that is because most mammals, in fact, almost all mammals, will have a form of teaching their children, teaching their puppies, and so on and so forth. The actions of being near them all the time and protecting them and being able to educate them. It's a case of, with that aspect, is the parents that have the best interest for them. They would hug, they would keep after them, they would look after them themselves. Societies in a mammal species, for instance, doesn't go, well, here's society, let's let society look after them. It's a case of these parents are the ones that look after them. You can look at that for monkeys, for example, with chimpanzees. They will always keep their children as close as possible to them, and then at a certain age, they let the children go off and be by themselves. But until they know that they're safe enough to be able to go off by themselves, they will protect them, no doubt. That's the same as what we are. We will protect our children to a certain age and then let them fly the nest, so to speak. But if you have a governmental system that's doing that, how do you decide when the child can go off by themselves? Is it at 12? Is it at 14? Is it at 16, 18, 25? The thing is, with the parents, you can gauge how good and how specialized the treatment needs to be for each individual kid. If you make it a governmental aspect, you're lumping everybody in with the same brush, so to speak. You're lumping everybody in at the same time. You're not giving individual care that parents can give to their children than what a society can.
I think you don't really understand where I'm trying to. Like, I'm not saying there's. I don't think you understand the extent to which I'm proposing this. Like, I'm not saying, oh, we're gonna have, I don't know, let's say a caretaker for like 200 children or something like that. Like, uh, it will be like, I don't know, psychologists or something that actually. I don't know if psychologists. I know how psychologists are in the UK or stuff like that. I don't know if they actually care.
Yeah, we have psychologists. I think you're looking for the word social worker.
I don't know if they actually care about you though. That's my. I've never been to a psychologist.
But that's the point that I was trying to make. The parents themselves can have up to what? Let's say 5, 6 kids, but they would be at different ages, so the other kids would be able to help them and so on and so forth. The parents would know where they're going and what's going on.
I understand that, but my point is that the people that would work in this system would be completely dedicated to this, and would also
more than the parent.
Yes, because they would be this is their job. This is what they do. Okay,
what you think that somebody that gets paid to care would care more than somebody that already has an emotional connection to their own genetic generational point, the sole reason for us being alive?
The sole reason for us being alive. That's not true. Humans are not just driven by genetics completely.
Yeah, we are. Hence why we have sex, and hence why we have children.
There's people that don't have children, right? Like,
there's people that can't have children, yes, and there's people that decide against.
There's people that don't want to have children.
Yeah, fine. But that's up to them. But generally, as a species, that is what our point is in life.
As a species, but as an individual, that's definitely not true. Like, people don't.
And those people don't have to have children, and I'm not forcing them to have children. I'm saying that the people that do want to have children are the general populace of people, and with that general populace of people, they would have a better connection to the children than somebody that is being paid money to care for them.
So sorry, I completely lost. Can you please repeat what you just said?
I basically said that you're advocating for people that care to then be paid to care instead. Why would you change the system?
I see your point. To this, okay, you do have a point in which, in the sense of, it will be much more difficult to find people that will care. Like, as in, you need to find people that actually care. Like, not just people that, whatever, do their job.
To look at it from a different way as well. What about people that care, but care because they want to harm the children? And we know that actually happens in the care system all over the world.
What do you mean, sorry?
Well, people that want to harm children in specific ways, either sexually, abusively, or mentally abusive. There are people that go into care sectors just to be able to do that. How would you screen and how would you change that, even though that happens now, today, in every society?
You just asked how to screen, and that's my answer, basically. Like, you would properly vet them. You would go through.
But it happens today.
Well, yes, because the systems that are currently in place today for this kind of deal are not. They don't work properly because people don't care about them, because only a fraction of the children, well, maybe not a fraction, but still only a small percentage of the children are in those, what do you call them? Like, childcare centers?
Care homes or foster homes.
Okay, foster homes or care homes. But only a small percentage of children are in them, and also because people.
Just quickly. Yes. But you're advocating to make more of those homes.
Okay, so think about it this way: if all of the children would be in care homes, that would make it a much better system. It would make it much better. It would have to turn into a better system. Right now, the system is ignored because not that many people are affected by it.
Have you ever heard of a system called Borstal?
No, how do you spell
Um, it doesn't really matter. I'll give you the quick prefaces of it. Basically, Borstal is for bad children that can't really interact with with their parents, and their parents send them away because they're too naughty. The thing is with that if you take away every child, you're not going to be able to provide a safe environment in these type of homes because there will never be enough adults that care individually to be able to protect the people that are in government facilities. Because the more children you put into a specific area, like at school, you'll get bullying and stabbing and so on and so forth and beating and whatnot. And that won't always come from the children either. That will also come from the people that are caregivers, supposedly.
Okay, I understand your point, but again, I think you're underestimating the number of people that I think should be involved in this program. Like I'm talking
No,
about.
you're underestimating how many children you're advocating to go into governmental care
I'm,
and how many buildings that you're going to need to use to actually implement your idea.
I realize this, like I genuinely do, but don't forget we're also talking about like this. By the way, for all the people, because I feel like I should probably phrase this. I'm talking this about like far in the future. Like obviously, society is not ready for this. Just caveat, but we're talking about a society where you can like basically automate almost everything that doesn't have to directly do with human interaction. And by human interaction, I don't mean whatever your cashier. I mean stuff like, for example, psychology, therapy, childcare, because these will be the last jobs to be automated if they will be. We're talking a whole different thing if this is possible to automate.
So, what would humans do in this society then? If this
Uh,
is the last job that would be automated from your own idea, what would humans be doing, and why wouldn't they look after their own children?
they would be free to do what they want, and of course,
But
like
they won't be because you're advocating to.
they can take care of children. See that's I think again because you're talking about their children.
Yes,
I'm saying it's not your child just because
it
you get it
is.
genetically.
Yeah,
Like
but that's the point. It
that's why
is.
that's why I use the term offspring.
Yeah, but even if it's your offspring, it's still your offspring.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter the fact that it's your offspring. It's
It does.
your child from a societal point of view. Like
No,
it's not your child if you don't care about like if you don't care about them. It's not your child if you don't um, like take care of them at all. For example, would you say that let's say someone abandoned the child? Would you say that it's their child? It's no longer the child. Like so sure, some parts of society may consider that it's their child, but to me, it's no longer the child. And what
it's
I'm
their
saying,
child and their responsibility. But at the same time, nobody would ever say that you should go and live with that parent. But you're trying to equate the idea of bad parenting and bad ideas in general.
no. I'm not bringing that up just to say, oh, well, there are bad parents. So like that was not my point here. My point here was trying to say that ch- uh, someone being your child is more includes more than someone being your offspring. You also have to take care of them.
That's the reason why we have adoption. So you can have the idea of the offspring that's been abandoned to be accepted by a family unit.
Yeah, and it finds a different parent. Sure, that's the point of adoption. Like you find a different parent.
Exactly, because generally most parents want to look after their children. The reason why I bring this up and brought this up is because you were saying that you want to have people that are completely separate to the child and the whole rearing
They're
process.
not. Well, what do you mean separate? They're not separate. They're separate just as much as like the people that adopt children are separate.
No, they're not.
They are.
The
Like,
people that want no, they're not. The reason why they're not is because the people that wanted to adopt want to have a family. They want to care for their child to have their own
define,
child.
hang on, define family, because we might be talking, because I feel, maybe because I put this as in my opposition to a family, but what I'm saying is like family outside of the structure. Like basically, I'm trying to, in a way, like move the concept of a family to a different way. I guess it's more evolving the concept of family rather than dismantling it. Now that I think about it.
I understand what your preface is. Your preface is that the family unit as we know today should be shifted to the idea of having a family as a societal family, a cohesive family that's to do with society. The problem is with that you invite bad people that are from the society to look after the children that have no way of defending themselves.
See, that's again, that's why I disagree with you. Today in society, bad people end up in care homes and
Yeah,
end
they
up in
do.
that structure. Yes, because we don't care about that system.
Really?
Yes, that's I.
So
I
why would the
genuinely
government
think.
change? Why would the government change then?
Sorry.
Well, the system itself is
Uh,
generally devised and put out by the government. So why would the
okay.
government itself
The
change?
government won't change like this. I can't. I honestly can't tell you. Like I'm gonna be open. I can't tell you how we'll reach, because you don't need just a government change. I mean, complete societal change. 'Cause that's what we're talking about. Like I can't tell you what the. I can't give you like a uh, list of steps to reach that, because
I'm not
I don't
asking
know.
for a list of
No, no,
stats.
no.
I'm
But like
asking for your idea.
of how to reach that. I don't know for sure how to reach that point. I can tell you that it has to come. First of all, one solution would be to actually, for example, I don't know, campaign for the government to care about those people,
How
highlight
can
their
you for? But how
highlight
can you?
their situation, highlight the situation that these kids are in, and show, because there are you can probably find some systems that are better than others, even though they're all shit. Some are better than others, right? And my assumption would be, and I think you, although I'm not talking about, like, I don't have citation here on the spot, but my assumption would be that people that grew up in better systems of care are going to be better off than people that grew up in worse systems of care in terms of this aspect, right? And the family right now is the superior system of care, like the family as we know it.
Yeah, very much so because they have two individuals generally, or one depending, and they normally care about the children much more than what people that have no emotional connection to would do. It's the same thing as, say, for instance, we take humans out of this. If you've got a pet, you wouldn't trust one of your mates necessarily to look after your pet.
What do you mean I wouldn't trust? I mean, I might trust.
Yeah, but you might do. The thing is, that's equating the idea of your friend, that's another human, that could have the same idea as looking after a child. If you wouldn't even do that for a pet with a friend that you know, why would you do it with a stranger?
I'm still trying to wrap my head around what you're trying to say. I'm sorry. Uh,
A lot of people care about their pets as they do
okay,
as a family.
okay, sure. Yes.
So if you wouldn't trust one of your mates to look after a cat or a dog or a fish or whatever because you're worried about them dying or killing it, why would you trust a stranger to look after a dog, cat, or fish?
Because, for example, would you not trust, to give this exact example, let's say maybe dog shelter is not the best
Kennels
example.
or catteries.
Yeah, there are whatever some like people take care of dogs and cats and stuff like that, and they take care of them as if the best example would be, for example, cats, like stray cats, and I don't mean just naturally stray cats. I mean
Yeah,
cats that ran away for some reason or were
sure.
thrown. Okay, people can take those cats and take care of it just as much. And for example, people in animal shelters, they take care of those animals and they genuinely care. Like,
yeah, they can.
Yeah,
they can. They can, but they can't take away the kittens, though. You can't get a kitten to walk around and go after somebody else. My point was that you wouldn't trust a stranger to look after your pet. Not that it doesn't happen,
see,
but you wouldn't trust one.
That's the problem. The idea of having like your pet, your child. What makes that child yours? What gives
The genetic disposition of you birthing the child.
Yeah, I'm saying, okay, again, here is our disagreement. Here's our basic disagreement. I'm saying that the fact that you've put your DNA into it, like that does not give you any connection to it in terms of like societal connection. Yeah, sure, it gives you a genetic connection, obviously. But I'm saying it doesn't give you that itself doesn't give you a societal connection. But then that doesn't give you any sort of emotional connection. Sorry, not societal connection.
Can I just quickly jump on your point? If this, I just want to quickly jump on it because it's a really important point I want to make, and I don't want to talk over you, but it's a really important one.
No, go ahead.
If you think that this happens with parents, as in they don't have a form of connection to have the best well-being for them or whatever, why is it that you think that people that have no physical connection whatsoever to a child would do a better job on average than anybody else that would have a genetic connection?
So basically you're asking me why I think they specifically a better job.
Yes.
Because they're professionals. That's what they do.
No, nobody is a professional child carer. Nobody would look after child professionally.
Professional child care on its own, okay, sounds kind of silly, but I mean, they're trained. And for example, like I would argue people that understand basic psychology take care of the children better than people who don't.
No, just because you understand the psychology of what the child's thinking and feeling doesn't mean that your own actions are going to be able to benefit that child. Just because you understand something doesn't mean that you have the tender touch to be able to stop a child from crying.
Let me rephrase that. Not only understand it, but they can also apply it. So people
you're making so many assumptions for this when it could just be.
I'm saying you can find people that can apply that are better child carers. I'm saying there is a way to, like, there are people that are better child carers and there are people that are worse child carers, and you can find those people that are better child carers.
Of course you can. In general, of course you can. You can find that in parents, and you can find it extremely more in people that go into foster care. As you quite rightly pointed out, foster care and the care system itself has more neglect, more people being neglected, and more people producing neglect than any other system for childcare.
It has more people. Okay, it has more people that are in neglect. Again, not because it's because like parents. You're basically talking about a system that's like essentially impaired. You're comparing that to like parents. You're comparing a system that would only work if it comprised a significant aspect of society, and you're saying, well, when it comprises 0.5% of the population, well, it doesn't work. Well, yeah, of course it doesn't work, because it can't work for such a small percentage, because nobody gives a shit. Because no. Okay, I'm being like.
Well, you can take,
but people do care little for people. Care little for.
I'm not even saying that they do or they don't care. I'm going on by the system that's already created with the people that are supposed.
Right. And I'm saying the system is that way because the family, like you have essentially the family, right? That's established itself for millions of years as the system of care, right? The structure of care. Let's go on that, right? And you have a system, right, that's trying to encompass that, but the family, the family is very like think about it. Who ends up in foster care? It's only people that don't have families. It's only people that have been thrown out of the system for this family system for some reason or another. And
but I'm not talking about that aspect of the system.
Hang on. And because the family system dominates the society. They will care. They will not care, and it not only control like dominates the society, but it also allots not just funds, but I don't know how to put this. It basically you have right the people in. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked with like what.
That's fine. If you don't mind, I would like to just quickly jump in.
So the you have the structure that is the family, right? So the structure that is family that is dominant, right? And only the kids are thrown out of the structure. Like they basically are thrown out of this. They're basically thrown to the edge of society because the society is dominated by the family. Do you get what I mean?
I understand exactly what you mean. That's the reason why I was trying to jump in, because I'm not talking about that aspect of the system and how that system already has children that are neglected. I'm talking about the children that are already neglected or are being neglected in a system we already have by people that have nothing to do with the family but are in the system provided by the government.
Sorry?
I'm bypassing.
I might be getting a bit tired, but okay,
I'm bypassing the family issue and the family neglect by completely wiping that clean and saying that children are still more likely to be neglected wholeheartedly by people that are already in the foster care and system and by the people working in it.
So you're basically saying the foster care system cannot evolve? Like it cannot, like
No.
it can evolve, but it cannot reach this. It cannot reach the place that I would say.
Definitely. Definitely. The reasons why it can't.
My point is that you cannot take the current system and reform it. Like you just have to get a new system. Like
yeah, but it still doesn't matter. The reasons why I think that it won't ever be that way is because the people that will be attracted to any system that is designed to be a form of societal or government care, the people will always that are in the foster care already, as in people that work in it, are always going to be attracted to that aspect of jobs and that aspect of looking after children. Regardless of what system that you put in place by the government, no matter what physical checks that you put into place, there will always be predators and people that are generally evil that will go into that system.
There will always be parents that abuse their children.
Yes, but it's less. It's a hell of a lot less than what it is for the care system. The care system attracts.
The care system right now does not. The care system right now does attract. I don't know. Let's call them predators. It does. The problem is that of course every system, but would you say for example, pediatric, is it called pediatric?
Pediatrics, yes.
Or teachers. Would you say the educational system attracts predators? I mean, maybe it does, but you don't see the effect of that. Why? Because people actually care about the educational system.
But why is the education system so bad?
Sorry?
If people care about the education system, why is the education system so bad?
I mean, my answer would be the Tories, but let's not talk about.
No, it was also bad under Labour. It was also been bad notoriously all over the world.
I'm not like that. That was more. Like,
no, but my point is that you're trying to suggest that there's a system that people care in. And the point is that the system is still bad. The actual example that you're using.
No. Okay, I was specifically talking about the fact that, like, you say, for example, like a system like this would attract predators, and maybe it will, of course. But if the system is cared about, then those predators will be thrown out. They will be vetted out. You're saying that that will not happen. And I'm saying that it will, because it has already happened with the education.
No, it hasn't. That's why there's always cases. You can go and Google search it all the time.
Of course, there's going to be some cases, but it's not nearly as much as it's in the foster care system. It's
No, because the foster care system is a 24. The reason why school and the education system is different is because that you're at school for 8 hours and you're monitored by other children and you're monitored by CCTV and so on and so forth. The thing is with the care system is that you are
can be
24
monitored.
hours.
You can have CCTV in fucking foster
Oh,
care.
fine, but there's also going to be places where you can't have CCTV and whatnot. Generally, that you can have CCTV in classrooms where the teachers are generally going to be looking after the children and the playground and whatever, so they can't scope off anywhere. The point is that with that system, it's only 8 hours a day that they have interactions with the children. With the foster care, they are 24 hours a day.
Okay, no, I hear you. You have a point, but you generally do. But like what you're saying again, it's not the fact that there won't be people attracted to it. Like there will be people that will definitely try to do. There will be predators, and they will try to predator, but they will be found out. They will be thrown out. I don't know why I'm turning Irish,
But
but
my point is that even in the system that you said is doing better in getting rid of people, as in getting rid of the predators, so to speak. You look at
yes,
the American system, for instance, you have not on a daily basis, but a weekly basis of female students, female teachers that are now coming out and molesting or forcing male people to have sex with them, and vice versa with male students.
there are, but again, I know very well that like even in my
That's
former high
still only
school,
a limit.
if
My point was, though, my friend, that
okay,
it's still a limited process that you're and level of interaction that happens in the education system that you've used as an example of something that could work and the vetting system is getting better, but yet it still won't look after the children. And the level of molestation is still higher than what it would be in a general populace of family.
again, I disagree, but like you're talking about the educational system here, or like my ideal foster care. That's
I'm
fine.
talking about the actual education system in any westernized culture, that there is still going to be quite a lot of predators that are still having sex, and even in
Yes,
the actual point of
I
physical
know, but
abuse or mental
there
abuse.
is a lot of like parents that abuse their children as well. And I think you're like underestimating a bit the amount of parents that abuse their children.
No, no,
But
I'm not. The thing is that the number of parents
I
is
know,
a hell of a lot more than what the education system is. And the thing is, the percentage that get molested is still lower percentagely than what it would be in childcare or in education systems. You have to do things by percentages.
or an education system. Okay. I'm gonna need a citation for that. But if you're right, then okay. Um,
Okay, well, I need a citation that you can prove that the level of parents that molest their children is higher than what it would
yeah,
be
I
in
mean
the education system.
it's the same thing. But I mean, we should look this up. I'm not saying like
Well, I can quite easily use my brain and go, well, generally, as the level of foster care and the level of people that admit to being abused is lower by their parents than what it is by people that are in foster care.
I'm not talking about foster care again. Like you wanted to compare to the educational system because the foster care, yeah, I can tell it's almost common sense that foster that like the foster care uh the current foster care system like has much higher abuse rates than parents. How the fuck do you look this up without wanting to die? Parental abuse. Oh god. Okay. Anyway, you there?
I'm still
Hello?
here, yes, my friend. I still think that we can go from the ideas of saying that in general parents look after their children better than other people can.
I'm saying this is true in the current society, and it is not inherently true. It is not inherently by them being parents, by having this connection of a child, or a child or a
How do you
mother
think that connection is
attached to.
formed?
Sorry,
How do you think that the connection that you're trying to push for, how do you think that connection of wanting to care for a child is actually formed?
the same way the connection is formed in our current society with parents. You just grow up. with.
No, you don't just grow up. You fall in love with the children that you have.
No,
You
no, no,
want
no,
the
no, no, no.
children that you have.
Yes, you fall in love because you spend all that time with them, and they love you back because, well, they're the first person that we fucking saw.
Yeah.
Like again, I'm saying it's the construct of the family is like sort of self-reinforcing. I don't know how to uh, describe that otherwise.
You're
So basically,
absolutely correct.
because the society is structured in a family, with family in families, whether they have one parent, two parents, whatever.
I don't
Because this
understand
because
why you're
this
advocating to change societal norms then. Because if it's something that's
again
normal,
that okay. So you're saying why should we change it? And to that
yes.
I bring my previous point about the fact that you shouldn't be responsible for your child. And you brought some good points in this. And yeah, it's of course it's easier to have an abortion or something, but and
My points at the beginning.
at a personal level, yeah, I agree with you. Of course, don't. Okay, especially and also caveat because again, we're talking about the distant future. In the present, if you don't want to take care of the child, have a fucking abortion. Okay, well, if you can, if you don't live in a country that like bans it or something.
Just don't have a child by accident.
Yeah,
The,
or
the,
yeah,
the thing is,
don't have a child. Like please don't have a child and then be like, yeah, well, I don't need to care about it. It's okay, damn.
that's fine, but you're actually advocating for people that do want to have children to be taken over by the government in the future.
Okay, what do you mean by do want to have children? Do want to have children or offspring? As in,
Children.
do okay? They want to have a
People don't want
they
offsprings.
want to, okay. They want wait. Sorry.
People don't want offsprings. People that want and actually
Yeah.
are planning for it want children.
First of all, I just want to say, like about 20 minutes ago, or whenever you literally said that it is the driving force. People
Yes.
want to have offsprings.
No, people want to have children.
Sorry,
People want to have children.
as in that does not make it. That's what you were arguing then. Okay,
No, my argument.
then I completely no. I understand your argument now, but okay, then I completely misunderstood your argument back then. I'm sorry about that.
That's
Like,
fine.
yeah, sorry.
I said that's fine.
Uh, I understood the fuck initially, and I was like, what? Oh, sorry, I don't know if it's okay to swear. I don't know, but it's a Christian server.
To be fair, one of the people that is in the chat.
No, I wanna answer your thing. What were we talking about? Fuck, because I know because I want to answer it, but.
Thing.
Oh yeah. I know what you mean. Oh, hi. Oh, hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. How's everybody doing?
I'm okay.
Oh, hi, Jay Willie. How did you get in?
But you posted the link in the group chat.
Yeah, but I deleted it for fuck's sake.
Oh yeah, you know how things can be with the thing that it's just that it's just slow internet. I guess still there for me. I can screen share and show it to you. Look here. Oh no, wait. I perhaps shouldn't show the group chat.
No, it's just I was putting it in the group chat so people could come and watch it.
Yeah, but you also put.
But I didn't want to post the actual Hangout link. It was supposed to be a closed thing between me and Dix.
You did. No, it's alright.
No, but I will leave in a short time anyway, so it's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. What did you want to add to the conversation?
Oh, about what exactly?
The government to look after all children.
Yes.
No, I think that's horrible because the children. It should be if you have kids, then you are the person that knows the parents are the ones that have the rights to the children, not the government. Like the parents are the you have kids, and because it's you that do it, right? And then you have to take responsibility for your action, which is having kids. So therefore, you have kids, you have the responsibility for your kids, and you have the parental rights for your kids. That's how it should be.
I mean, I just completely disagree, but like I disagree on a fundamental level. I don't know. Like I disagree, as in I disagree because there's not really any reason. There's no reason for you to for anyone to say, well, you know, just because you made that child, you biologically made it, you had sex, and then
Can I ask a quick question?
but hang on, I just want to finish. There's no reason because of that to say, well, now it's your responsibility. You have your rights. You have rights over your children. Okay, I put it in a very blunt and pretty
Sure.
and pretty inappropriate way before when I said property. That this is the much better way to put it. To have rights over your children or your offspring. I'm saying,
I take it you're a socialist.
yes.
Do you believe that workers should have the payment of their labour to be equal all around?
Sorry, what do you mean equal all around?
As in the people that make the labour should be equal to the people that own the factory. As in workers' rights should be that they own their own labour.
Yes, workers should own their own labor. I don't see what do you mean by equal or not. That's my only, because like it doesn't have to be equal as long as like you own your own right. Because for example, okay, so should we go into this?
No, the reason why I brought it up is because a lot of socialists in general believe that if you were to have workers' rights, that you should be able to buy into a cooperative or a cooperative style system. The thing that I was trying to draw from that is that if you think that what you make gives you the right to own it, then surely you would have the right under your description.
It's not okay. Then okay, okay. My view on why socialism should be a thing is different from.
Well, I'm not saying that socialism is an idea. I'm just using your process of saying.
Yeah, okay, but like that's not in my socialism. That's not where I come from. As in
right, okay.
My socialism, like the where I come from is that, and I'm not saying maybe many leftists or socialists do actually come from the point of view that you describe, because I assume many socialists will not agree with me on this family thing. But in socialism, in my view of socialism, why socialism should be a thing is simply because okay, so it's not that you have the right to what you make as in like products and stuff. It's just that the person, like let's call him the CEO. It's not only the CEO, but you get the point. The owner of the factory does not have any right. Like do you understand what I mean? It's not that you have a right, it's that they don't. You as a worker.
I don't get what your point is with that. If the owner and the CEO doesn't have a right, how can the owner of the CEO create a business?
Sorry?
You said that you're going to have your socialism under the idea of not being able to have ownership or rights of ownership for that business. So how and why would people create businesses to begin with?
So no, okay, then owner was a bad word. I'm talking about someone. Okay, so I'm talking about owner in a non-socialist sense, as in a person or a group of people that own the factory. Not necessarily the factory, the means of production, but you know, whatever, factory, corporation, company, whatever, and like workers basically working for a wage rather than actually working as part of the company. So like in a way, I don't know.
So as I said, then they're part of the ownership of the company, and they're working for themselves and being paid by themselves.
They're part of the ownership of the company. Yes, basically, you rather than having ownership. Basically, is what I'm saying is ownership should be.
Which is what I was saying at the beginning of the means of the production.
Yes, it's not just like because they created. No, because I get where you're trying to go with this, but it's not like because what they like. That's not why they should have ownership over. Not because oh well, you know, they created this, so like I don't know how to describe it, but.
I don't know. It's your idea, my friend.
Sorry?
I don't know. It's your idea.
Yeah. I'm trying to think how to properly describe it. it is they have a right, right? So they have a right to, you have a right to create something, right? That's unequivocal. Okay, and my point is you have that right to a thing, an object. Okay, because it's an object, or it doesn't have to be an object. It can be a service. It can be whatever. Okay, but it's not the same thing as a child. You don't have the right to a child because a child is a thing. Or we're supposing that all people. We're not trying to be Descartes here, right? We're supposing that all people are conscious beings. Right? That's completely different from an object.
Like the reason why I said that is the reason why parents should look after children is because the thing is that children can't look after themselves. So
yes, and I'm saying the government should, like, it's not, we understand that like children can't look after themselves, right? But it's who should look after the children, right? Or like what system should be used?
You should use the people who were the ones that were successful enough, that did the highest job and actually managed to create the child, is the ones that should have look after it.
Why?
Right? And also,
why not have the most competent
wait,
people? Okay.
wait. Also, if somebody makes a child, then that is also their responsibility, and it's not mine as a taxpayer. Okay. So the reason why is because meritocracy said that if you manage to create something, a person, right, then it's something that you of your own making. You have proven yourself capable because that's something that you created. The government didn't produce my kid. I did it.
I mean, it's not extremely difficult to produce a kid. It's completely like it's basic. Like you can be a great child producer, and you can't, and you're shit at taking care of your kids. These are two completely different things that have nothing to do with each other.
Okay, but why? What says that the government would be better then?
Because the government can pick like actual people that are, because when you have parents that take care of the children, that's a random process.
It is the person that they are related to, that you create.
Hang on, let him finish.
People can. Sorry.
I was going to say, let Jay Willie finish his point.
Yeah. Sorry.
But if I do something, there's something with the fruit of my labor, right? There's somebody that I have a family. I made someone, I love someone, and we decide to have a family with someone else. Who would say, why should we be proud of our children, right? Why should we be it if we aren't doing anything wrong? And why?
I'm saying it's not your children. You shouldn't consider that just because you made them, you have a right to them.
I do. That's what parental rights is. It's a human right.
Yeah, parental rights are human rights. What?
It is. Just look after the chapter of human rights. It's kind of easy.
I'm convinced that the UN Declaration of Human Rights. I mean, I'm not convinced, but I assume it probably has parental rights.
It does have the Declaration of parental rights as a human right, by the way. It does have that.
I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm saying I don't consider it. Just because it's in a document, it doesn't mean like that's not human rights. Don't derive from this document. This document
actually it kind of does.
That's how we understand it. I mean, we give ourselves right, and the rights are then given to us by a document, and we follow the document as a consensus under democracies, whatever they may be. But I think that we're all going under the different points of trying to say that you should be responsible for your actions, and the actions themselves sometimes generate a child.
I'm saying there is a complete difference between an action. I'm saying there's a complete difference between an action or something that you make that's an object, or an action that has a certain right, and I don't know, me.
Just to jump on that. Just to jump on that very, very quickly.
Yeah.
If that you decide that you're going to do something and you're now not responsible for that, does that mean the crime is now not committed by the person that commits it?
Sorry?
But you're saying that you've decided to have a child, but you don't have any rights to that child? So taking it to a conclusion, that means that it would be, if you were to do something wrong, that it's not your fault, and it is the fault of the government or the people that are in care of you.
What do you mean? It's not your. I don't understand where you're going with this. Like I
Like,
So
genuinely
under your idea, you're
Okay.
saying that if you have children,
Right.
you do not have the rights to the children, meaning that your actions
You
are
shouldn't.
now not considered your own.
You shouldn't have the rights to your children. That's what
Fine,
I'm saying.
fine. That's what the preferences that I'm going under. But under that preference or preferences, you're actually suggesting that they don't have the rights to their actions. So by that logical
No, I'm not.
conclusion, crime is then not committed by the people.
I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm simply suggesting that a child is not an action. A child is.
It is an action.
So.
Yeah, exactly. Child is only conceived by sex, which is an action between duly consenting people.
Yeah, so
If you know that, then you know it's an action. Why would you try to say it's not an action?
It's not an action. I'm not saying, oh, creating a child is not an action. I'm saying the child itself cannot be treated the same way that you treat an action from this point of view, from a moral or legal point of view.
Jeff,
Yeah, you can.
No, it's not, because it's a separate person. It's a separate person. It's not your continuation. Okay.
Can I make a quick
It
point?
literally is, though.
Well, I'd like to make a quick point. If you're trying to suggest that a child or a baby is its own person, why do we not just let the baby live by itself? If it has its own rights to decide what it wants to do.
Because it has its own right, right? And it has
Sure.
it has the right to live, and it can't live on its own. So someone has to provide that right.
So why do you have to take it away from the parents to give to the government?
If the parents are giving the children the needs to need.
It's not their parents in the first place, is my point.
But it is, though. But what, like, if me and a pretty lady decide that we don't have to be allowed because I'm gay, like, we just decided to want to have a kid together, and then we have it, right? And then we take care of it and we do everything right. Why shouldn't we be allowed to do it?
I'm not saying you shouldn't be allowed to do it in terms of you can take care of that child through like the system, but I'm saying you don't have the right to it just because. Okay, so you created the child.
Yeah.
And then from the moment it's born, you shouldn't have any more rights to it than any other person has.
Why?
No, why should you have more rights?
Because we are family.
That doesn't make any sense. Like
yes, because people having every single, like, most species have a connection to their own offspring, emotional and physical and psychological connections to what they that is how our instincts, that's how humans are, that is how other mammals are. Fucking gazelles are like that. Not even just mammals, but even birds are like that. Some reptiles are like that. They do have a kinship with their children. It's something that is naturally and innate in their psychology and in how the species have evolved. We have evolved to care about our children because that is how literally every single species have survived. Some plants even do that. Even insects do. Like, that's just how evolution portrays more life. It is how we have evolved organically and naturally. There is nothing unnatural or strange about it. That is just the rule of nature. This is just how humans have evolved, like every other species on the planet.
I agree with this, but I'm saying this is not the end. This shouldn't be considered. This is a step in evolution. I'm saying we should go beyond that. It's no longer necessary.
Wait. You're suggesting that the idea of evolution hinders on the idea of government being able to look after the children, when that would be something superficial affecting the DNA and the structure of humanity, which wouldn't be a form of evolution. No, it would actually be a form of societal pressure.
Evolution, not in. Sorry, I know that Jay Willie used evolution in I used evolution as in like a new system, not as in biological evolution.
You mean the evolution of the societal problems or the societal structure?
Yes, the evolution of the societal structure, not of the people.
But how would you change the evolution of societal structure when naturally and from a process of evolution in itself as humans, or even just by the idea of human nature, is to want to have children and protect your own children? How do you change that?
Human nature is not static. Human nature changes.
Not in that aspect, it doesn't.
Not when it comes to that, it's not even unique to humans. That actually existed long before humans eventually became humans.
Yes, I figured that. And like there's like, I don't
But
really
the point
understand.
is, my friend,
I mean, I guess this can be another right wing versus left wing debate on whether
It already is.
how much, yeah, but
no,
how
it's
much,
not. It's not a right versus left at all.
no,
It's not a right versus
I
left
was
at
just
all.
making a side point about how like we're talking about human nature right now and whether and how much can it be changed. But okay, go on. Sorry.
But you cannot really like if something has been existing within our species for the last billions of years, and how do you think society?
Yes, you can change it. Is my point.
But how long? Yeah, okay, how?
Again, this will be in the far future. I can't tell you how. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to quickly jump in. Hang on. I want this to settle a little bit because we're talking past each other rather than actually just trying to interact. Because I didn't want this to be a back and forth argument. I wanted it to be able to have a conversation about it. So I want everybody to settle down on the ideas of shouting over each other and give everybody a chance to speak.
Okay.
The thing is that you're trying to suggest, Dix, is that you're trying to suggest that human nature, which is to look after its own offspring or own children, depending on the definition you want to use, as we've been through before, will change. But in actual fact, it won't change because evolutionary standpoints would dictate that you look after your own children because you can look after them the best, generally.
That's a false. I mean, it's not a false. It is a false statement. It is what you said that if you have like that from an evolutionary point of view, it will be better for parents to take care of their children. No, it is currently better because the other systems are shit.
Yeah, that's because humans have evolved to that point. Like,
yes,
look, like you cannot really if that is the way humans work, then it's not. Then if you say it could change, like, no, even if you say it could change, it won't change because that is not the direction which humans are behaving. It goes contradictory to human nature. So even if humans, as we are right now, would have a legal system that was contradictory to that, we humans would, our biological nature would oppose that system on a fundamental biological psychological level, right? And you cannot really make us evolve into something different when that is the driving force of of evolution. How can you change something that for evolutionary when that is what perpetrated the force behind the evolutionary change in the first place? It's never happened in any species, and especially not in mammals. It can never happen because it's
that's our problem there. The idea
the thing is,
like, it can never happen. Okay, it has happened with certain things, but not in this at this level, sure. But it has happened with certain things where like all of the animals do certain things this way, and we don't do that. We do it in a completely different way, right? We're like basically the first animal to not abandon, for example, disabled people, right, or disabled members of our species.
The reason why we don't.
We've decided that it's a moral good.
Yeah, can I respond to that?
Of course.
It's the reason why we do not like exactly. That's because if someone is disabled, right? I don't know. I have no connection to that person. I have no vestige biological interest in around a disabled person, for example, right? If I have a son who would happen to be disabled, right? Then he is the progeny of my blood, my gene, my evolutionary success would be him, for example, right? Or her if she was like disabled girl, let's say disabled boy, right? Then I, as their parent, and the parent, right, am the person that have a vested interest in having that disabled person living, right? That's me, right? Do you get that? The reason why we take care of disabled people is just because they can be your children. That's why we have laws. But I'm not finished. I'm not finished. It's that And also the reason why we have laws, right, that protect disabled people, right, and like take care for them when they are too like grown up and they do not have parents, right? Because they can, why we make a society that disabled people can be independent regardless of disability, right? The reason why we do that is because we might be disabled and our kids might be disabled, right? So therefore we have an interest in our children, even if they are disabled, right? That is why we have laws that 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 that, that makes life more manageable, functional for people who are disabled, right? That is because we have an interest in our own offspring. That is supportive of my point that we are the ones that are perspective of our children. We want laws that protect disabled people because we can be disabled and we could have a child who is disabled, right? And therefore us, even if we're disabled, we have still have an interest to propagate our existence by reproducing biological desire. And therefore, if our kid who is disabled, that is our biological product, and we have a vested interest into keeping their genetic alive. So therefore, because we want families and we want to propagate our genes, is why we take care of disabled people and why we have a society who does that well.
Okay, are you done now? Or
yeah.
Okay. So, see where you're getting the wrong idea, in my opinion, is when you say that you care about disabled that you would care for your disabled son because of genetics, because of a biological reason, and that simply isn't untrue, because just like you said, the point of biologically genetically caring for your offspring is that you pass down your genes. But like a disabled child in most cases will not be able to pass down those genes. So why do you care about them? You care about them as a person from a societal point of view, not from a just straight up biological genetic point of view. So it's
actually do.
Let me finish. Dix, have you finished, or do
no, I did finish. It's all right.
Okay.
Actually, I do, because if I have a kid who is disabled, right, and I would want that kid to have the same opportunity to propagate their own genes. So therefore, I would like to give them the opportunity to do so, because they are my kids, because they will be my continuation as well, even if he or she would be disabled, right?
No, yeah, but like many disabled people cannot. I mean, I guess it depends on the disability, but many disabled people cannot like reproduce for whatever reason, as in they cannot, right? But that doesn't mean you care less for them, does it? And what I'm saying is that caring does not come from like biology. Like, I mean, there is a small part that comes from biology, but when you have someone who cannot, let's say you don't even need to have a disabled kid for this. You can have, let's say, someone who's sterile, just that.
Who's sterile?
I don't know. I don't know if someone can be completely sterile, as in like nothing can be done. You cannot use any form of.
May I quickly just jump in?
Or something. Sorry?
May I quickly just jump in?
Sure.
I think both of you are looking at this from a moralistic point of view, where evolutionary wouldn't have any idea of morals whatsoever. The idea of disability, the idea of disabled people would be a case of evolutionary, that they wouldn't be able to run away or protect themselves, so their parents wouldn't be able to. So self-preservation would be to leave the disabled kids or children alone, where in a society that doesn't have to do the idea of rat racing, so to speak, or running away from predators, would be able to take care of itself. The idea is that us as a society has changed because evolution in itself has changed the way that we view people with disabilities. Nothing to do with a moralistic standpoint or view. It's the case of people are not being killed or hunted anymore.
So you're saying we've changed from a genetic point of view when it comes to, for example, this change in our attitudes towards disabled members of our species. Would you say that there has been a genetic change?
No, I wouldn't say that it's a genetic change. It's societal change, as in the idea of evolution doesn't play the same role as it does to other animals, because we're generally able to protect ourselves. But that doesn't mean that from an evolutionary standpoint that us as a human species is not going to want to procreate and have their own children.
What about chromosome number 2? Because there was a point in human evolution where the second chromosome in humanity, like, it had a substantial fusion, basically a number of years back.
What do you mean?
It basically allowed us to basically just be what we are today.
Yeah, but that's a direct link to evolution, as in the chromosome was actually supposedly linked with the idea of free thought and free thinking, as in being able to stand up and then have different aspects and different dietary needs that increase in the brain capacity and so on and so forth.
Ah, I got you. And my apologies for Miss Elfing, our elf friend here.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. No. It was interesting because, like, what I heard a little bit earlier in the conversation. Sorry to interject, but I'm interjecting. It was basically kind of like the idea of, I forget who it was, but they said, "Well, why don't we just treat children like they're everybody's children?" So basically, at the time of birth, you just distribute them just absolutely randomly.
I know why we don't do that, because we have a vested interest into keeping specifically our children with their gender, right? If we have only sons or only daughters, right? And the other people that have the same genders as our children are therefore our and also their competitors. So if I, for example, have a daughter, right? I have a vested interest in her, not all other girls, right? Because they are her competitors, right? So if there are less competition than right, if she is getting it better, right, that is going to be good for me, right? Because she's my interest. Therefore, that she could pick the best dude. Okay. So therefore, all children are not in the interest of the individual. The interest in our individual from a biological evolutionary standpoint is our own children and grandchildren. And so
we all basically like our own stuff. Like, I mean, not to say that kids are stuff, but it's just like, although this is mine, I have an association with this. Not to mention that it's something that you literally created. I mean, just the bond between a child and his mother, and just even just their father and stuff, just at a very young age, that's an extremely strong bond.
And also, the reason why people might be more inclined to see the procreation of their own children and disregard the genetic effects of others' children, the reason why we do that is because that is simply a natural response to evolution, right? That is because if you have the desire to care for your children the most, and not all children, then the people that care about their own children rather than all children, that they are going to be more likely to have grandchildren. Okay, so therefore their genes, including their personality traits, are going to live on more likely. So therefore there are going to be more children in the next generation that care about their own children rather than people who care about all children. It is simply natural selection. It's incredibly easy. So to say that so from an evolutionary standpoint, we very much do care about our own children above literally all others, right? The reason why we also care about others is because they are potential mates of our own children, and because we are pack animals. But even pack animals are evolved naturally, as I recently described, to care about our own offsprings above everyone else's offspring.
Are you done? Or
yeah.
Okay. Good. So the only thing that I want to say is that you're simply putting too much of like the human conception of like humans don't care, aren't influenced to such a degree by their genes. Like they are influenced, of course, but they're not influenced to the degree that you're talking. I mean, you said something about treating other people as competition. I mean, we don't do that. And there's a reason
we do that. The reason why we don't is because we are pack animals, but we still do it to a certain extent because that's how evolution drives us forward.
I mean, you don't have children, right? But like,
not yet.
Okay. Like, do you see? Would you see other like you said of the same gender, so other children of about the same age and same gender as competitors to your child? I mean, that's
Well, I think we
naturally
might
do.
be, sorry to interject, but it's just, I think we might be just even overcomplicating this, because like one of the easiest examples you can give to run counter to that standard point is adoption. I'll be straight up. I had a very close friend growing up, and she was adopted. She was actually adopted as pretty much more or less an orphan from Colombia, and
Had to.
like actually her parents that adopted her, they already had biological kids and stuff. She has an older brother that was part, but she was treated just like the family in all different ways. Just the bond there, the closeness with the family and stuff. I mean, it's but and again, in the same instance, it's like, all right, she was their child, maybe not biologically, but just in all other respects. I mean, she was their kid. They care about each other. So, I mean, is that something that is just strictly biological, or as human beings,
No.
have we maybe adapted over the years to just care for anything that's small and cute that we associate with?
No, it's yeah, we do care about others, of course, because we are pack animals, and if somebody, for example, have our ideas and is part of our even instinctive notion of tribe, right? Not official, but instinctive notion of tribe. Then, well, then we probably would care for it. For example, if somebody have an ethnic connection to me, then of course I care for it. If someone have a linguistic connection to me, like speak a language I do, well, of course I care for it. If someone have a cultural connection to me, I care for it. If someone were to be close friend, I care for it. If someone are not biological family members but still being part of the family, I care for it. Of course, that's because pack animal instinct believe that kinship with others is going to result in you care for their well-being, and that could, of course, is the reason that is why mammals have so. But that's why we adopt. That we can adopt children because of kinship. You, the person, preserve your ideas. Might not be genes, but there are a lot of other things that goes along with what you have created and what you are that goes along your adopted child as well.
Okay, but going along with that, if it's in human nature, I mean, wouldn't it also be in our nature to just care for like other children and our fellow creature?
Yeah, of course it would, but it's mostly in human nature to care about our biological kids.
Is that based upon resource availability, or what would you say? Because, like, I mean, suppose
genetic disposition memes.
Well, I mean, we tend to things that we know and we are familiar with, we're often more comfortable with. If we're unfamiliar with something, we tend to be less comfortable with until we become comfortable with it.
Not in this instance. If you have an adopted child and you have a biological child, you tend to gravitate to your own biological child.
Yeah, you can work against that, but it's still nature to do so.
But by the way, for people that are arguing for this in general, you are actually backing up his societal argument of actually saying that societally that we would actually look after kids via the government's inactions.
Well, I mean, the government itself doesn't look after. You have people, which may be agents of the government, but it's still people looking after people, right?
Yeah, so therefore it should just be the people that have a vested interest in that particular interest, genetic survival.
You're conflating this vested interest, which is something very fine. Like genetics affect people in very minute and very subtle ways, and you're taking, oh yeah, I have a vested interest. Most of the vested interest that people have in their children is because of the society. It's not because there's something very subtle. Okay, when it comes to like genetics, I'm not saying there isn't, but it's not just biology. Okay, that's and it's not even mostly biology. Because again, you can care. What I'm saying is you can care just as much for a child that isn't yours. And
no, you can't.
I know.
I'm sorry, no, you can't. I'm sorry, no, you can't. You cannot care for a child more than your own child. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. Biologically, you will care for your child more than any other child.
That is not true. I mean, biologically, yes.
True.
Biologically, yes, but biologically, sorry, I don't want to shout over it. Sorry.
Yeah, but that is true. Biologically, we will gravitate to our own children.
Thing. That's what I'm trying to say. You can definitely care about someone else's child, someone else
but
is
caring about another person's child is never the same as your own biological child.
Yeah, because we aren't evolved to do that. Because as I said before, if people do that, then their genes are less likely to like compared to people who doesn't, right? And people who doesn't are more likely to have a genetic success, which is going to have a stronger imprint on evolution.
Now going off what CSG was saying, like now it is very likely, at least well historically on average, I mean, folks do often tend to care for their own kids, but to say that it's impossible, I think would be a bit more of a stretch, because I mean, you see instances of folks that maybe they have kids, maybe they lose kids over a while, or maybe every once in a while there ends up being a bond between maybe their son or daughter's friend, or like a nephew or something like that.
I think you misunderstand the argument I'm making. There is no way that a parent will care more for a child that is not their biological child if they already have a biological child.
And I say that's false. Like, that's simply false. There are people that genuinely don't. Like, for God's sake, you're saying there's amongst the people that have biological children.
Yes.
There is no way they will care for another child.
No, I'm not saying that.
More than
I think he's saying on average.
No, I'm not even saying that. If you have a biological child that you don't care about, why would you care about a child that you wanted to adopt if you were going to adopt? You wouldn't want to adopt in the first place. If you had children, you would care about your biological child more than any other child that is not your biological sense.
So that is what you were trying to say. Okay.
Yes. But the reason why I'm saying that is because it's true. If you have a biological child that you keep and you then adopt, unfortunately for the adopted child, you will not care for that child more than your biological child. Now, I'm not saying you won't care for the adopted child. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, unfortunately, due to genetics, you will always want your child to do better and push that child more than you would do for an adopted child. It is simple genetics.
And genetics are not the only factor in you caring for certain children.
Yeah, that is technically true, because you can technically degenerate a population into going against what would be good for them. So I guess you have a point in that.
Is it a genetic argument, or are we talking more of a kinship argument? It's like, this is my kin, this is part of my family.
I think I described that earlier. The kinship argument that I said earlier was the thing that if somebody have a kinship with somebody else than your children, then of course you have a vested interest in their survival, as long as they do not threaten the survival of your own biological children or your own biology.
Well, the thing is, I'm not sure that's always the case, and the reason why I say that is because sometimes folks have falling outs with their parents, falling out with their kids, and maybe there's somebody else there, maybe just somebody that's helped them along the way, that they develop some form of bond, or one could even say kinship with. It's kind of why I threw that out there rather than just delving into like the protein-based route.
I still think that you're all misunderstanding, or at least mischaracterizing my argument. If you have a biological child that is a mare that you don't really give a shit about, then you're obviously going to care about the adopted child more. But my point was that if you care about your biological child, you will gravitate to that child and want that child to do better than any other child. Yeah, that is simple genetics.
What you just say that is simple genetics? But yeah, sure, according to like genetics, yeah, that's true. But genetics are not the only factor. That's not going to be always. You can care about your child to a certain extent and care about someone else more. Can't do that. Really? Because again, from a genetic point of view,
I don't think he was denying that at all.
Okay. Okay. Maybe
I think we just got caught up over a few semantics.
Yeah, but that's not really that likely, because the reason why, if somebody were to care about someone else rather than their own biological child, then they are less likely to be successful in reproducing themselves, in procreating their genes, and spreading their blood, right? So therefore, there are going to be less people like that than the ones that are more interested in their own children.
So it kind of sounds like you're saying we tend towards the recreation of folks in our general phenotype or something like that.
No, I said yes, our biological children.
Well, biological, basically phenotype being basically things very akin to us. If we're going to go down like the genetic route, I guess. I'm not a geneticist.
Yeah, but you're trying to say that chenotype. You're trying to say that the chenotype would be something that you care about more than your actual genetics, your own DNA.
Well, it's like me syndrome. It's basically like if you see folks that kind of like look like you and resemble you, that's something that's more familiar. So we often do that. Not always, but
no, I agree with you. When people go to adopt, they generally go to adopt somebody that has the same characteristics, skin color, same sort of hair color, vice versa, blah blah blah. When they go to try and adopt, because that's what they generally would like, somebody that looks like them, because of a kinship and a phenotype. But I'm still trying to say that generally your genetics and what comes out of your genetics from an evolutionary standpoint would always be the case of you looking after that child more than any other child. If you had to make a choice between your adopted child and your biological child on what one lives, genetically and from an evolutionary standpoint, you will pick your biological child to survive, not the adopted one.
Oh, I just want the best doctor.
Yeah, but you do understand what that leads to? If the people that choose the adopted child rather than the biological child, that is then their genes are, well, they're not really going to be spread in that case. Where the people who choose their biological child, their genes is going to spread more.
Yes.
So therefore, that trait is going to spread more.
Of course, but people don't only. If I may, are you done? Sorry.
Yeah.
That's
but
evolution.
People don't only care. I'm saying, like, especially with like humans, we don't only care about spreading our genes. We care.
No, we care about.
Hang on, let him finish. Then make your point afterwards.
That's not our primary driver. Like that's no longer our primary driver.
Here it is. I'm sorry to say, I agree. It still is. Hence why we still have children to this day, and everything we do.
I don't think we have children because, because of spreading our genes.
Okay, then I have a question for you.
I think it's more.
No.
Okay, go.
Just a short question, right?
Okay.
Then, if we doesn't have children to spread our genes, why would we have children? Just asking.
You want to form.
Because sex can be very enjoyable. Sorry.
Hang on. Yeah, but no, he's not saying that. He's saying, why would we have children, not the process of it means.
Yeah, I know. I understand that. It's simply because you want to, like, so why do you want to take care of the children, basically? As in children, not rather than offspring. This is what we're talking about, right? If we're going by the definition that we used, that me and CSG used like an hour ago, right?
Yeah, but if the reason that we will have kids, besides propagating our genes, what is that reason?
The reason is that you want to form a connection with someone. You want to form, like, a societal connection, and also a very important reason: societal pressure. A lot of people have kids because, it's normal in society to have kids.
Yeah, but do you know? You do understand why it's normal for society to have kids? Why people are pressured to have children?
I don't think they are before anybody goes any further.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, neither do I. I just want to ask you.
Societal pressure doesn't mean.
Why would they be?
To pass on the family name?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I'm not saying that, again, this societal pressure originated millennia ago, millions of years ago. Then, yeah, you could make an argument that this was the primary driver of human. This was the primary driver of humans. Yeah, to pass on their genes. I'm saying this is no longer the case, and this will be less and less the case because we have basically, like, we're no longer just living in the natural state of man.
Yes, we literally are. The reason why we create this artificial and comfortable world around us is because it would be easier for our own survival, right? And that is also includes our own genetic survival. This is not moving away from nature or moving past nature or beyond or moving to something that's after it. No. This technology the way we do it now, and everything, all of it, that is so unnatural, is the most natural conclusion of everything. It's not moving away from nature. This is nature. In its purest sense, human nature evolved.
Okay, I thought we might be talking about two different things here, because I'm not saying nature. I'm not saying, oh yeah, we're moving away from nature as in, you know, we don't live in the woods. I'm saying, like, at a fundamental level, we care more about stuff like morality than about natural, the basic, I don't know, just the basic need of carrying on your offspring.
But morality,
Yes.
like morality, isn't that like? Can common sense guy just nobody say anything? Just common sense guy just quickly explain what exactly morality means, so I don't use the wrong definition.
Generally, morality is a concept of what is good and what is bad, and how that we should live our lives morally, which is good.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason why we have morals and moral value, that effect we have, why we got them, right? That is because it is good for our own survival. That includes our own genetic survival. We have a moralist. The morals are projected upon humans, right? That is something that because the best morals is going to benefit us the best, right? That's why morals exist. That is literally why morals exist, because protect humans, right? And that's because the reason why most humans have good morals is because they are going to be protected, because they just want them like anyone else. And everybody's protected. That includes me. Okay? That's why we got morals. And those morals exist because we want to perpetuate and reproduce ourselves genetically. That's the driving force behind your morals.
That sounds like a very good argument, and I mean, I've heard Professor Peterson and Sam Harris literally argue for hours over like the core of morality. So that's a discussion in and to itself. It's just, I mean, if you're going to do that, I always just harken back to the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Let hurt no person, so that no person shall hurt you. Stuff like that. It's just in this context, it's like, well, everybody does things for their own reason. Unless you specifically ask a person and they're 100% honest with you, I mean, you're not going to know. Are there a number of factors? I do harken back to kind of a bit more of the kinship argument, just because you would have folks that basically, if they were passing on the family name, why would somebody pass on the family name? Because at some point down the line, you may have somebody that does absolutely like great things. So that ends up being a story for your lineage. So it kind of goes into like the whole logos argument as well, because let's face it, there's probably been times in the past where certain folks that took on the name of a particular individual may not have actually been their biological offspring.
Yeah, that makes sense, actually.
Kind of. I'd like to actually go back to the actual issues that we were talking about, rather than trying to talk about.
Before you do that, I really, really need to go now. So I just want to thank you all for like having this thing. I will be watching it, but I really can't speak anymore. So it's a good ending for me, if that makes sense.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you very much for being a good participant.
Yeah. See y'all, and have a great time. Bye-bye.
You too.
I still want to go back to the actual issues in which we were actually talking about. Not the idea of why people have babies, not the idea of why...
The original idea.
Yeah. But that's what I would like to go back to, because I find that more interesting than the idea of is it genetics or is it the nurture that we actually have babies for? Because I think that's a mute argument for the idea of why we have children and why parents look after children in the first place, and why the government shouldn't be the ones that administer the care.
What do you mean? What? Sorry.
Well, the point was that the government is. You were suggesting at the beginning of the prefaces of the conversation was that you think that government authorities or government personnel or government trained people should be the ones that look after the children rather than the parents. I wanted to get back to that standard and that idea.
Okay, so but again, my point is that parents don't have either rights or responsibilities over their offspring.
They definitely have a responsibility.
Why do you say that?
Because they made the child. They have a responsibility to care for that child until that child can care for itself.
That child is not an okay. First of all, that child is not an object. It's not like, oh yeah, well, you know, I created this piece of art or something. I don't do manual work, so.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. I'm not suggesting that. I'm saying that the responsibility lies with the people that. Sorry.
Okay, no, sorry. Go on.
I was going to say that the responsibility lays solely at the parents that created the child to look after the child until the child can become a positive member of society. Now, if the parents can't do that, it is then a responsibility of the state to then look for a family that can. It is never the responsibility of the state to look after children on a industrial scale.
First of all, like you are, like the government already takes care of the children in certain aspects. The security of the children is provided by the government. Okay, so you know, yeah, sure, parents provide some security, but most of the security is provided by the government, right? Police.
Well, the government ensures that rights are enacted, assuming that the parents are enforcing, like, providing the rights to kids and taking care of them. The government need not get involved. However, I believe what CSG is kind of saying is basically if the parents are incapable of doing that, then yes, perhaps the government should get involved. I think the big argument is, at what point does that occur?
I don't know. I don't think that's where I would stand on that issue. Like, as in, it's a problem of I think the idea is that, or at least my idea is that, you have hang on. Hold up for a moment, just 30 seconds.
That's fine. I just wanted to clarify my argument rather than memes assuming what the argument was. The argument still is that even if the government interjects and intervenes due to proper circumstances, the government will always, by certain bodies, will look for families to look after the children. The government itself never looks to institutionalize the children. The reason why they stay in institutions for too long is because families will not adopt them or keep them as fosters.
Okay, sorry. Sorry for that interruption, by the way. Yeah, no, I figured your point, but that's not English. But okay, like I get your point. But the government already. I'm saying it's the human. Okay, I'm going back to human rights. We talked about the fact that I think the government should guarantee human rights. And
sure. Does that mean that the government then should enforce the parental rights that come with the?
I don't think parental rights are human rights. Like I know they're.
Yeah, but you don't, but other people do.
Well, yeah.
Society as a whole does.
I'm talking about what I think. Of course, I'm talking about like my opinion here. Am I not? Are you?
No, I agree. But I was just pointing out that societally, which is something that you would have to change for this idea to work.
Again. Remember, we're talking about distant future. Like I am perfectly aware of the fact that society, like, cannot take this in the next 200 years. That's too little time. You know, in the next 500 years. But anyway, I was talking about human rights. Okay, and I'm saying it's because the government already in our system guarantees certain human rights to children. It does that, and I mean it does. For example, parents, unless your parents are specifically doctors or something, cannot provide on their own, like, medical care. Right? It's gonna be, for example, through the NHS. Right. So
no, that's not correct. That's not correct. Okay, not in England anyway.
Maybe I shouldn't have done that. I don't know for sure how the British medical system works. So
in most societies, this even happens in American societies as well, and I'm pretty sure it happens in most European societies as well. While the parents are with a child to the age of 16, I believe is the lowest, then the parent themselves is able to help decide or to decide what the doctors are allowed to do and what they shouldn't do to the child under supervision.
That's not without. I mean, first of all, I think that's bullshit. Second of all,
You may think it is, but that's the truth, and that is
second of all, that's not. I'm pretty convinced that there are limits to that. Like you cannot. Pretty sure there are.
No, that's a parental right.
Often, it's parental consent is required up to a certain point.
Yes, normally 16.
Okay. Is mandatory vaccination not a thing in certain countries?
Sorry?
Is mandatory vaccination not a thing in certain countries?
In certain countries, yes, but not in America.
Well, yeah, because America, it's America. But there are countries where, for example, vaccination is mandatory. So that is, whether parents like it or not.
Yeah, which is initiative.
That's usually something. It's usually something that's not necessarily directly enforced, but it's enforced if you want to utilize the public school system. For instance, if you want to put your child into like an elementary school, a lot of times they need to have requirements saying, do you have this vaccination? So while it may not be compelled, if you want to send your child to school, which you technically also need to legally do, you need to do that unless you have some major legal exception, because it could put the other kids potentially at risk. That's the theory behind it.
Yeah, but for example, there are plenty of countries where the educational system is mandatory. Like, for example, Romania.
No, the education system isn't mandatory. Hence why there's homeschooling. It's
true.
I don't know if that what's the case for UK or the US, but for example, my country, Romania, has mandatory education. Like, I can tell this.
That's fine, but in most European
countries, I believe that.
No, but that's the thing. In most European countries, it's not it is compulsory. But compulsory isn't mandatory.
Like for instance,
aspect of.
Yeah. Well, for instance, in the U.S., basically, as far as I understand it, is education is mandatory. The means by which the child is educated is up to the parents. So, like CSG said, you can choose to utilize the public school system, a private school, or a charter school.
Kind of robot there. I'm going to give Shirati a link to this, because I think I was going to do the same with Mad Dodge as well, but we had way too many people on.
The thing is, I'm like, I don't really like. I should be going at maybe at most 5 minutes. So, because like, I have to like this.
I understand that you're an hour ahead of us.
Cleaning and stuff, because I haven't done that, and yeah.
I understand you're an hour ahead of us. So instead of it being 10 o'clock where we are, or where I am, it's 11.
Yeah, but.
Wait, you're over in Romania, brother?
No, I'm in the Netherlands studying.
Oh, that's a very good place too.
It is, honestly, it's been amazing. Like because it's my first year in college, so it's been great.
Oh, grats! Don't screw it up.
Well, I passed my first exams, so it was fun. Although the fucking international law one, God. If there's one thing that I hate about the EU is how complicated EU law is, for fuck's sake. Like I barely passed that.
It's almost as like they're writing legislation so complicated that you'd need to hire more lawyers to continue to write and understand that legislation.
The problem with it is that they're trying, like, it's almost as if they haven't really like thought it well through, and now like at the beginning, and now they just keep creating, because they want everything to be in a system. Like they don't want to leave anything.
Well, that's the thing. They're trying to account for everything. It's like you're trying to be like a United States of Europe, but the thing is, you're basing the United States of Europe off of like, oh, we're a trade federation, and as we've seen in the Star Wars Legacy, trying to base an entire empire off of a trade federation isn't always the most solid of foundations.
No, because the robots attack.
Great analogy.
Well, yeah. Then you get all the clones and everything, and oh my God, people talking about genetics and we're playing God and everything. It's like, dude, if you want to be the United States of Europe, just put up for a freaking goddamn vote. Then at least folks feel like they have a choice.
Well, I think that would be that would be a discussion for definitely another day, especially with the idea of votes and referendums. Do you want to do a closing statement for your idea, and I'll give a closing statement, and then I'll open the chat up for everybody else to come on and have a bitch and a moan, because I know you've got to get off.
No, sure. So basically, in summary, I think I believe parents don't have rights or responsibilities with regards to their children, but the government does have a responsibility to protect everyone, including the children. So that's why I think in the distant future, the family will become, I mean, I don't think it's necessary even now, but in the distant future, we can move on from a family to a sort of society where children are collectively raised rather than individually raised. And yeah, I know this is the topic of many dystopias, but I do not think it would be a dystopia. So yeah, okay. See you guys later, and thank you for approaching the subject with an open mind, because it's not. Yeah, it's a pretty controversial opinion. Let's just leave it at that.
I would definitely say it's a very controversial opinion, and it's quite a lot for me to not go over and talk over the top of you. But that's the point of my channel, anyways, to be able to have the Discord and express the ideas. Because as I normally say, there's no bad ideas. It's just a case of working out the kinks of the ideas and where it goes from there. Memes of Destruction, do you want to say anything at all?
Oh, no, I basically just reiterating what you just said. I was surprised you weren't yelling and screaming at the guy. I'm just like, I've heard some very passionate discussions before, and I'm like, oh, I wouldn't want to be around CSG right now, because it'd be like being around the Incredible Hulk. It's like, no, idea, bad, smash. But I'm just like, no, like he said, man, it's like it's really kind of sounds like you're putting in a potential. At least a public option in regards to children. Yeah, that sounds pretty freaking controversial, but it's a topic that was discussed in a very well thought out, well articulated way. Was it perfect? Oh, hell no. But here's the thing. If folks are going to end up having these arguments, let's at least try to have the best dang arguments we can. So, you know what? Hey, in the next year or two, when folks are looking back, it's like, oh, look, hey, there was a discussion on this freaking like 2 years ago. Holy shit, they already talked about a lot of the same stuff that we did. So, hey, with that being said, sometimes a frog pops in.
Yeah, I just noticed. All hell's going to break loose. Go ahead, RPR.
Best dang arguments.
Well, I think RPR is probably getting himself ready or anything else like that. But if he is ready, then please, by my guest, please have a chat, have a talk, express your feelings, sir.
Well, as long as B doesn't show up,
everybody's going to show up.
Yeah, we're gonna. Hey, come on, pile in, everyone. Let's have some fucking fun. No, our guest has gone though. I see.
Yeah.
Oh,
but you can still give me your opinion and the reasons why it was bad.
Well, it was bad because he's definitely textbook. You know, he has no hands-on experience, and that's where he fucks up. Yeah,
no, I think that's true. I think the unfortunate thing is it's fine having an idea, and this is the reason why, in general, we should always have an open Discord about it, because the ideas themselves may be bad, but until you have somebody explain why it's bad, you're actually just defending the notion of the idea. Because you need to be able to formulate the idea and go through the whole process of it. Now, I completely disagree with the gentleman completely and utterly. But the point is that because we've had the chat and the talk, he now realizes that it's not going to happen for a very long time, which means that he understands that it's not going to happen in his lifetime. It's something that he can't advocate for because he knows human nature in itself will not let him dictate that.
For which
didn't he even say, like, on like a personal level, he kind of agreed with you, but just he was thinking in some abstract manner that, well, if you look at it on paper, depending on the piece of paper he's looking at, it might make sense.
Yeah, but he's forgetting
That
the obvious.
doesn't necessarily translate to positive morality, though.
No, he's not actually seeing the physical thing that's in front of him. He can have all these philosophies as much as he like, but if someone's going to fucking come up and call him blank out, he's going to be fucked. As much as he like, but if someone's going to fucking...
Oh, no.
It's happening.
It's Miss Quinn. I want to see your tits.
You didn't even need to say anything. It's the feedback through the speakers.
Mute the YouTube channel. I have muted the YouTube channel now. Sorry.
Yay! So what have you got to say?
Hide your wife.
Hide your wife? What?
She does prefer the dick. I mean,
Yes.
She does go for the vagina, but she does prefer the dick.
I think
she
most folks
prefers
prefer
Madge.
women.
Yeah. Well,
Wouldn't have a clue. Right, B, you come on. So you've obviously got a point that you would like to make, I assume, or somebody there has a point that they would like to make. So please go ahead.
I think the only point Miss Quinn wants to make is the fact her nipples are pointing out. That's the only point.
Degeneracy. And this is supposed to be an educational channel.
This was educational. Are you kidding me?
It's only some days that we fall into degeneracy. Generally, I try to be educational.
I've learned nothing apart from, what was his name? Dix is an idiot. He's living in a dream world.
Yeah.
Well,
If
he has an idea.
over to the government, they're going to end up as three things: either cannon fodder, or they're going to end up in a sex ring, or a chicken nugget.
I think you mean McDonald's for
I
the
like
chicken
chicken
nugget,
nuggets.
but fair enough.
Well, I don't want to go for the brand.
But no, I mean, I completely agree with everybody's understanding of. I do think that the idea in itself is a bad idea. I don't think he's formulated any sort of reasoning behind it. The rationale didn't seem to stack up under any scrutiny. But until you go through the ideas, I don't think that it's fair to just completely write it off.
Hang on, let me read this.
Oh my god, such a boomer.
What? Hey, you need to figure out technology. You deal with one technology platform all day, and then all of a sudden you switch to something else, you got to rejigger your brain.
Indeed.
I take it memes you don't have kids.
Oh, not that I know of.
That's
No,
normally
that's
the
the same
best
as me,
way.
too.
That's normally the best way. But if you happen to come across kids that are yours, you tend to learn to multitask.
Well, you have to. That's the thing. That's why I was like, "Oh, did you have?" I thought you said you had. Did you have one or two, man?
I've only got the one, but he's a handful. Because
Dude,
he's just like me, so he's a fucking handful.
well, you know what? Here's the thing: you take what you know from when you were a little pain in the ass. You apply it. You apply the things that you've learned. That you're like, if I knew what I know now back then, what could I have done? And then you just apply it in a way that you can communicate to your son, because every kid learns a bit differently. Oh, and I was going to say the whole time, we should have somebody like Sharati on that actually has kids and actually homeschools.
Mm-hmm.
It's all free for you, Sharati. It's all free for you, Sharati, if you want to say your piece.
Oh, I think that guy should burn. And I mean that literally, not figuratively.
Hey, hon.
Hi. You need to burn too.
Hey, I've got you the code. Shut up.
Good boy.
How about me, Sharati?
You need to burn too.
Why? Because I'm Welsh.
No, because you never talk anymore. Welsh is just an added plus.
I could say I'm an NPC and I've learned my place, so I do not speak.
Definitely wouldn't call you an NPC, my friend.
An extra added plus is you're a ginger.
All you do is RPR rather than speak. You can take your vow of silence, but you can always give different gestures. Do like colon. It's like nods, colon.
That's what the Buddhists do. Yeah, that's a very good idea. Yeah, thank you.
So that moron thinks that people should have their kids taken away.
Yeah, pretty much. He thinks that their kids, anybody's kid, should be taken away by the government.
No. His argument was that it's not up to the parents to necessarily care or ensure the rights of the children. It's up. The best way I can express it in the most positive manner is it's up to the government to ensure the rights and the dignity of the children, not unto the parents. Whereas our system, the way I believe that most folks here are looking at it, it's like the parents are there to take care of the kids, and basically the government is there to ensure the rights of the people. He's basically extrapolating it that it almost sounds like either a fully or a minimal a public option for having to take care of your kids.
Yeah, the government can take my kids when I'm dead in the fucking ground. Plain and simple.
Agreed. But Memes, that's not his fucking argument, my friend. He even says that himself. That's not his argument.
That's not what I heard, but that's the most positive interpretation.
You want to put it in what he said then?
His actual argument is that people should have children, but then the government should be the ones to look after the children.
No.
Well, it wasn't so much the government, from what I got. It was so much that society has rule over the children born, for which the government has overall say.
Yes. Yeah. That's completely his argument, which is completely moronic.
The best argument. Oh God.
Okay, no. How would you guys have felt if a bunch of people were ordering you around instead of you had your mother and your father? You got orders from 75 people that were in your neighborhood, because I don't know how big or small your guys' neighborhood is. You got conflicting things being told to you at the same time.
Well, my response would be quite easy. I'd invite them in to watch me, or should I say, think they're going to watch me execute my parents, and then I'd fucking turn the gun on them.
And me, myself...
Well, I'm not sure at that point where you have access.
CSG.
Me, myself, they wouldn't even get anywhere near my house to go near my parents.
No, I'd draw them in just to fucking execute them.
No, I'd sniper them from afar.
No,
I wouldn't even let them have...
you?
Here's the thing. The most positive way I could see he was generally coming from, and again, I didn't really hear this argued, maybe it was a language barrier thing, but coming from an ultimately humanitarian perspective, if he is going to take, as he said, a socialist route, basically at that point he believes that the government should be there to help to ensure whatever is needed for the people there. If he's going by that argument, then it's on the government to take care of not only the citizenry, as in the folks who might be working in the public sector, the private sector, but also the new citizens, basically the kids. It's up to the government, not necessarily up to the parents there. So that would have been an argument that, again, you're coming from a socialist, perhaps even at some point a communistic aspect. Basically, the society helps take care, basically each unto themselves, basically going down that whole mantra, basically being more like ants.
Now actually answer Sharati's question, which was, if the government was coming after your parents, what the fuck would you do?
Oh, fuck that, dude. It's your family. And then that's the thing. It's like, all right, if you want to entertain that idea, that's fine. You would need to have legislation crafted in that way. But the way we have the Constitution right now, it's to ensure for the rights of the people. It's there basically to help foster things like the family unit and stuff. So it's like, dude, this is the game we're playing. If you want to talk like whatever down the road, if you get it that far, it's like I just don't see that happening, man. No, you don't fuck with people's family.
I'm not going to get an answer from you, am I?
No, you're not going to get one from Memes, no. But can I ask you a quick question, Memes? You obviously think slavery is wrong, obviously.
Oops, yes, slavery is not cool.
So when that was legislated by the government in itself, does that mean that the government would have had its best interest in place for the slaves?
Well, you're talking about new members of society, and to be fair, we didn't completely outlaw slavery as well, dude. Oh, dude, I work in a freaking city, a mill city, that we used to use like child labor because their hands could get into like the looms to clear things, and kids lost hands and shit like that. That's why we put in different child labor laws, because like, that shit ain't cool, and maybe hey, we should get these kids like at least a standard level of education so they can help assimilate to society, be productive members, and be able to do the best they can with the lot that they got.
Sure. My point was, though, that you did suggest that the government itself should legislate for children or for this idea in itself. The government doesn't always legislate for the good of the people. That was my argument with Dix as well. The government shouldn't be in charge moralistically of anybody. It should just be there to enforce the rights of people generally, not to legislate morally.
It's a social contract.
Oh, sorry, me.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Means. I was going to say the government should only be there as an advisory, not a law.
I mean, it basically just sounded like rather than the parents should be responsible for the kids, the government's responsible for everybody. So thereby, the government is responsible for taking care of the kids. Basically, meaning that. I mean, you could also make the argument, it's like, oh, kids also, if you have kids, you should also partake in extra social programs and stuff like that. The thing is, if you filled in the gaps, like if there was like Medicare or some form of like single payer or something like that, basically, if there was health coverage for all, yeah, you can always have your more Cadillac plans for better coverage, kind of like in the UK, you can actually get a private plan as well. Is it a perfect system? Fuck no, nothing's perfect. But if you did have something like that, basically, he's arguing for an extension to that, an extension to that. It also did sound like he was kind of inferring that if a parent didn't really want to have any real association, they could just be like, that is what it is, and they might not have any ties or anything.
That's what the process of adoption is, and he wasn't arguing for a point of, the government should do this or the government should do that. He was saying that the government should look after the children. All children should go into a care facility to not be looked after by their parents and should be looked after by the care system.
That's why and this is one of those things that got me into YouTube, man, because like I'll hear certain arguments often from some more leftish folks, and I'm like, all right, I hear what you're saying, but if you actually want to make a point, okay, you're arguing from a view of a principle, it's like, all right, that's great, you can have the best principle in the world, but how do you actually craft that into a form of workable policy that won't have terrible astronomical like societal impacts and stuff like that? So I didn't hear it, so that's why I just wanted to pop on.
No, that's fine. That's the reason why I would have given the links. I mean, to be fair to Mr. J. Willie, who come on, it was my fuck up that accidentally put the link out into a group chat that I have on Twitter with certain groups of people. It was supposed to just be me and Dix all the way through, but once you open the floodgates...
Dude, it was good. It was interesting chaos, because we kind of went on there into the weeds a little bit, but it's like, all right, we're having discussions. They seem to get more and more controversial, I guess, if that was possible, but we had them as badly as we could.
Yeah. To be fair, I'm not normally... Sorry, but to be fair, I'm not normally a watcher of yours, because by now I'm usually getting ready to go on the red eye, and I have not been feeling well, so I'm not really up to par, but Quinn told me what the hell was going on, and, well, basically sent me out like a fucking attack dog, because he said that this guy wants to take people's kids away, so I'm not really for taking people's kids away, whether by force or not.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that.
If they are deserved like legitimate pedophiles or abusive to one's kids, then yeah, they're deserving. They do not need their kids away or with them. If there's a legitimate reason for people to not have their kids.
Yeah, but in the case of pedophiles, would it not be the case of removing the kids from the adults, but removing the adults from the society?
Oh, touche.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's... I mean, aside from all the other legislative and like legal things you have to go, I mean, one could argue like that is kind of what he was arguing for in maybe not the best way put into the English language so far.
No, I sort of agree with him.
I have to actually say I'm kind of with RPR on this one, that if you do anything to children, I don't think you have a place in society. I just can't justify anybody that would do anything to harm children. I just can't justify it in any way whatsoever.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's
wholeheartedly.
That's going. Well,
who ran away?
Sorry?
I said, who ran away?
Oh, that would have been the gentleman that was on, but I believe that he spent 2 hours on, and it is around about 11:15 at night.
It's a young Romanian gentleman by way of Norway, where he's studying.
Norwegian. Not Norwegian, Netherlands.
Oh, that one. Sorry, I misnationed him again.
Yeah, well, you misnation Batman all the time. You keep telling him he's Irish or Australian.
Yes. I've been right more recently.
How the hell can you misnation the person Batman?
Wait, what? Oh, because he sounds like some of the Aussies I've spoken with before.
Okay. I'm just going to quickly answer a question that's in the chat. It has nothing to do with the conversation that we're having, but I just wanted to quickly answer it. Thoughts on Farage calling out Batten over Tommy? I think that Farage has every right to be able to call him out over it, but at the same time, if you believe in freedom of speech and you believe in the idea of protecting children, then you shouldn't really criticise Batten for saying maybe we should have him as part of the group. Please carry on from what you said before, unless anybody wants to go off of that point. But I assume everybody will want to carry on.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said over my children because they're in the kitchen with me. So if you could repeat what that said.
I was just talking about a situation that happened over in the UK, which is Nigel Farage was calling out Jared Batten, which is the new leader of UKIP, over the Tommy Robinson issue, where Jared Batten said that he would like Tommy Robinson to be part of the UKIP membership and necessarily run for UKIP office as well at some instance. And Nigel Farage called him out, saying that he should never do that. He was trying to get rid of all the right-wing lunatics, and called Jared Batten out for it. I personally don't think Nigel Farage should have called Tommy Robinson a right-wing lunatic. For instance, I don't think that Tommy Robinson is anything near a right-wing lunatic or right-wing in general. I just think that Nigel Farage has the right to be able to say that, but at the same time, he also has the right to be heavily criticised for what Farage has said as well.
Does he have a point?
No.
No, I don't think Farage does have a point on this, because looking back now in the highlight of Farage's legacy, he got what he wanted in the beginning and then legged it and left it for the rest of the British government to sort the fucking mess out. When he could have stood up into the helm and said, yes, okay, we're there. And he could have been there to guide us through the steps. But no, he stepped away.
This kind of reminds me of Operation Desert Storm. I'm not a military guy, and I shouldn't even be saying this, but just this,
no, it's exactly the same. Yes, I understand where you're coming from. It's exactly the same.
Because it's like, all right, George H. Bush, original GW, no, not Herbert Walker Bush. Basically, he went into Desert Storm. He got in so far, he did not actually remove Saddam Hussein at the time. That's generally what I at least remember from history. MC can feel free to critique me later. But when that actually happened, we went in, we stopped, but then again, we go into Iraq a second time, and then we actually do that. So it's like, if we're going to put men and women in danger, ask people to fight, kill, and die for us, it's just, if we're going to do a mission, do we actually fully complete it? Like, what are our actual goals? Whereas we get in the second time, it's just like countless, like thousands of people have been dying. Shit.
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead.
No,
No,
I was
you
just
started.
Wait a second. Wait, if it is like that, are you saying that Tommy Robinson is GW?
No, that's not where I was going to go.
Okay.
I was actually going to say that I don't think it's anything like that at all. It's a case of that you have a leader that's trying to say that, well, you have Nigel Farage, that was a massive component of freedom of speech. That was a massive component of bringing out the establishment and going against the establishment and the status quo. You then have Jared Batten that's in support of somebody that is literally the embodiment of what Nigel Farage was trying to protect and perpetuate. It just shows you that Nigel Farage is a career politician and says what people want to hear rather than doing what the people want.
But is that what people want?
Yes. Most people would want the aspect of being able to protect the children that are being raped by rape gangs, regardless of the race, regardless of the religion. If people are not going to call it out, and you have somebody like Tommy Robinson calling it out, then Tommy Robinson becomes the forefigure of those people that want justice.
That's true, but does the majority of the UK would they vote for somebody like Tommy?
Depends on what you mean by most of the majority. If you mean people that are in working classes that have had dealt with rape gangs in most big cities, then most of them would support Tommy Robinson, yes.
Favorability as a percentage of the UK people, like, you know how they have like prime minister and presidential polls, like favorability ratings, is it at or above 50%?
I would say it's probably around 45 to 55%, depending in the area that you go.
Well, that seems fair, but I'm just like basing that off of maybe that's why Nigel was saying something like that. I could be completely off, but
the reason why Nigel Farage is saying that is because he helped create the party, and he was excluding people that he would classify as right-wing nut jobs, as in people that were the British Nationalist Party and generally racist people. Where because Tommy Robinson created the ADL, which is now a racist movement, it wasn't when Tommy Robinson was in charge.
Well, I thought that's why he got out. Because he didn't like what was going on.
Exactly the reason why he got out, yes, because he didn't like in the way it was going and who was taking over. So he got out, and because he has that guilt by association, and he is always called the former leader of the ADL in every newspaper that ever talks about him, at least in the UK.
They kind of poisoned the well right off the bat.
Yeah, that stigmatization now sticks with Tommy Robinson, and anybody that supports him is now a right-wing racist Nazi supporter, rather than somebody that is just speaking out about rape gangs that are raping children.
See, it doesn't matter what Tommy is now. Just like it doesn't matter if you're a humanitarian. If you're a conservative here in the U.S., you are a racist Nazi bigot. You could be a person who helps people in your spare time, is a vegan and helps vets. It doesn't matter.
No, you could be the Dalai Lama.
And I mean, and by vets, I don't mean military vets. I mean like veterinarians, like you say, animals.
Yeah.
Because you know that America First isn't America First anymore.
That's true. I completely agree with you. And RPR was going to make a point about the Dalai Lama, but I'm going to actually expand on that. The Dalai Lama have recently come out and said that the Europeans are for Europeans and the Middle East should be for the Middle East. And the Dalai Lama got called a racist nationalist over it.
Well, I mean, it's an argument. Some may view it as an argument. Some may view it as racist. You can do what you want on that, but I actually have a question. Unless anyone wanted to interject upon the Dalai Lama.
I just quickly wanted to interject on what you actually just were trying to, not insinuate, but trying to put out there as an open point. The thing is with the Dalai Lama, he was directly asked that question, asked a question that gave that as an answer. the thing is that he wasn't saying that Europeans should never go into the Middle East and vice versa for them. He was saying that people that were born in the Middle East, that part of the world is generally for them, and nobody should take that away from them. Same thing for the Europeans, that part of the world is generally for the Europeans, and nobody should take that away from them. It doesn't mean that he was saying that people shouldn't have immigration.
Oh no, that's fine. And I mean, historically, I mean, if you're going to go in that respect, it's like, all right, if those folks are normally there, it's like, well, it makes sense that area is theirs. And if the Dalai Lama is going to be a dude that's going to be promoting peace, it's like, well, if we don't have that established, that might lead to a lot of conflict, which might lead to a lot of death. So that doesn't sound very peaceful. So, but I actually had a question: is Nazi becoming like a new N-word?
Well, actually, no. The N-word actually has, or nigger actually has, a connotation that is actually derived from something, and people can actually use that as a racist slur. Now, Nazi nowadays is not a case of it being taken and controlled by somebody else. It's still a slur, but it's not. It's lost its actual meaning. Nazi was an actual political ideology, rather than now it being
Yeah, can you correct me on this? But didn't Nazi originally stand for National Socialist, but just in German?
No, it's National Socialism. It was the German, the National Socialist German Workers' Party. That was the Nazi party.
Yeah, that's the full definition of it.
Well, that's why I say Nazi, because that was the abbreviation for that. I mean, there still is National Socialism. I mean, that still is a thing, but just specifically for the Nazis, that was the abbreviation for the National Socialist German Workers' Party, basically Hitler's the Third Reich there. So,
or what we would call Labour in the UK.
Yeah, dude, here's the thing. When you use that's why I'm asking, because what are we doing when we use that term? If you're calling somebody a Nazi nowadays, the modern day connotation is saying that you are a member of a particular ideology that basically wants to exterminate other people from the world based upon their ancestry. Like, dude, that is pretty fucked up. And these are folks that cause the deaths of tens of millions of people through war and just fucking execution. Like, that's why I'm saying, if you're just labeling somebody that says something you don't like, that may be of more conservative nature as a Nazi, dude, that's a pretty big ad hom. If like we're looking at the zeitgeist going on right now, that's why I was asking, like, is that becoming just like a slur at this point?
I've just thought of something. Planned Parenthood has probably become the greatest killer of people than any communist leader in history.
Yeah, abortions are down year over year. They're at the lowest point since Roe v. Wade has been passed, at least according to government statistics.
Yeah, but
the report just came out like 2-3 days ago. No. CNN and like the Washington Post both basically they sent things like that. So,
well, to be honest, my friends, it's coming up to 10:30 where I am. I've been on for 2 hours and a half. I'm going to do final words for everybody here, and then I'm going to get off because the missus wants to go to bed. And what the missus wants, the missus gets.
Okay, right. Shall I start the ball rolling then?
If you want to, or if Shirati does, then it's up between you.
Shirati's fucked off. She's fucked off, well, she has.
Never mind then it's all you then.
Okay. Oh, shit, it is, yeah, because Memes is fucked off.
Fuck everybody then. Right, I'm going to kick you as well. Go ahead, please.
Okay then, guys, right. Final words of the day. This was a very interesting situation tonight. Welcome back, Memes. So that means you get to go after me. Yeah, it's been very interesting on this guy's idea of the state being in control of our children. It should never, ever happen because we have all an indictive right to anything that we produce, i.e. offspring. It is our responsibility to bring them up in the best means possible. Not memes. And the ultimate red pill, just to final off. If you really enjoy Christmas, then are you still a schlum? Over to Memes.
All right, then. Thank you for those words of wisdom, RPR. But just going upon some of the conversation that we're having there, it's just, I stand by we are family. I don't know. I really like Family Matters growing up. That was a show I would say I maybe got a few morals from. But here's the thing. I mean, in the most egalitarian sense, you could extrapolate that to saying, love thy fellow creature, so we are all family. It's just very often, I think folks that are trying to promote that as an ethos, sometimes not the most appropriate words are always used. So it ends up appearing as very authoritarian as opposed to wanting to be egalitarian. Even if you want to be egalitarian, the actual means by which you go about it can be very authoritarian. You can have the best wishes in the world, best intentions, but again, the road to hell can be paved with a hell of a lot of good intentions. So you have to figure out on a whole, for the best part, how it would actually work, how it's actually going to affect people, the actual people, not just what am I doing and are most folks going to like and can we get it passed, but is it actually going to work for the folks that you're representing? Because ultimately that's what our elected representatives are there for. They're there to represent the folks and do the best damn job they can. I think it's a freaking very difficult job because, I mean, if it was easy, then you think it would be easier, but it's not easy. We have these discussions. It's great we can actually have them in a format where we're not just completely ad hom nuking the hell out of people, but we're entertaining ideas in a sense that, let's face it, what are we doing right now? We're archiving stuff on the internet, man. Everything that you write, for better or worse, it's archived here. So what I'm saying, guys, is many years from now, folks will be perusing, doing their internet history projects in university and stuff. And maybe just someday somebody will come across this and be like, oh, these guys are arguing things that we're arguing like 117 years later. It's like, why didn't we figure this out before? I don't know. Hey, let's just try our best and see what the hell we can do.
Thank you very much, Memes. Thank you very much for everybody else that's signed up. Thank you very much to Dix as well for coming on and being brave enough to come on. There's not a lot of people would actually be brave enough to come on and articulate their views as not necessarily as well as he did, but to actually put the idea out there and for us to be able to talk about it. And for everybody that come on as well, thank you very much for not shouting. So that includes you, Jay Willie, as well. Thank you very much for being genuine and nice when coming on and debating the idea and not the person. And again, same thing to Memes as well, but Memes is a cunt. But no, that's just me playing around because I know Memes quite well. But generally, I can't ask for much thing. I mean, a lot of people would want to come on and they would want to tear him completely and utterly a new one. I appreciate that, and that's what I wanted to do. But the process is that if you wanted to say that you want to give ideas to everybody and a platform to everybody, then it's up to you to be able to give a platform to those people. Because if you want something and want your idea platformed, then you have to platform other people's ideas. Don't get me wrong, that's up to you, that's your choice, that's what you need to do and what you want to do or your choices. But if you want your ideas platformed, then you have to also platform other people's. And again, a lot of people were putting into the chat, and it's not a dig at anybody at all, a lot of people were putting into the chat, oh, you don't have kids, so you can't talk on the subject. That's exactly the same as what feminists would say about the idea of gentrification. You're not black, so you can't talk about the situation or the ideas of it. You're not trans, so you can't talk about trans issues. You're not gay, so you can't talk about gay issues. Why the fuck can't I talk about any issue that I want to? And why are you trying to restrict me by what stuff that I've done and what I haven't done? Surely it's the idea of expressing free opinion and the idea of that opinion, rather than it being a case of I've had experience in this, so I'm better talking than what you are. I just don't see that logically in any form of argument, and to put it into this argument only puts it into the idea of you are the only one who can talk about that aspect, and it's not true. Anybody can talk about the idea of it, and I think that we should do that a hell of a lot more often, rather than actually trying to go with anecdotal evidence all the time, because I think the more people that are heavily involved in issues are blinded by the issues that they're involved in. And I think that's where we're too stuck in our polarization of our politics, as Shirati was mentioning earlier. The case is that if you're a certain idea and certain belief, you get called certain names. Well, it swings both ways. If you don't want that to happen to you, don't do it to other people. Be the change that you want to be the change that you want to see. Lead by your own examples rather than saying, I want something done and not doing nothing to change it. Well, anyway, guys, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. Please like and share as much as possible and all that good shit and all of that. But thank you very much. See you all again real soon. Bye-bye.